Recording is started. Yeah, hi everyone. Today we are conducting a session on NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0 as part of it's an initiative from ISU to Delhi NCR chapter information. In today's session, we will discuss. In today's session, we'll talk about the CSF, understanding a high level what the CSF looks like, and we'll go a little bit in detail with the CSF 2.0 core functions, and then we'll focus more on the examples and the resources that how this aligns in the cybersecurity domain. So CSF 2.0 is like this is not a very deep dive session. This is a kind of an overview. CSF is a very large topic otherwise if you want to understand in detail. But we will talk about only at the high level how it is structured, what the intent is, and how it fits, how it aligns with the other standards and frameworks which are available in the industry. And in the end, we'll have dedicated time for the question and answer session. But in between also, you can unmute yourself and ask questions to make it more interactive. Okay. Starting with my introduction, I'm Rahul Kokcha. Some of you already know me, and I have total 24 years of experience now, and working hard into cybersecurity, data privacy, and business continuity domains. And currently working as a independent principal consultant for this GRC solutions. And when I talk about solutions, it's not the platform that I implement. I'm totally into the governance and the management compliance and those stuff. I help organizations to build this management system for the data privacy, information security, and data privacy and business continuity. Okay. So coming to CSF, so very first thing is like it is named as this NIST cybersecurity framework, not as a standard. Right? If you look at the NIST has many other standards, but this one is named as a framework. So anyone who would want to probably can talk about anything, any difference in what is the difference in the standard and a framework? Anyone who would like to talk about this? Okay, so let me explain. So we have very popular ISO 27001. We call them as standard, right? And which is also used as a framework at large in the industry to build the information security management system. Right. So difference in the standard and the framework is standard defines the requirements, right? And you can say I comply with this standard, right? Or you can get certified with certain standards if there is a certification associated with that standard. Right? For example, 27001 is a standard, right? It defines the requirements for the ISMS, and you can get certified against that standard as well. PCI DSS is another standard, right? More specific to data security and in the financial domain for the card data, and that's also standard. And they have requirements defined which you can comply with, and you can get certified upon. But framework is more of a guidelines, right? If you look at the statements and all given here, this is more about a guidelines, right? It does not say, okay, these are the things you need to meet. You cannot say I'm compliant with the CSF framework, right? You can say, yes, I'm aligned with this framework. My cybersecurity practice is aligned with framework. You cannot simply say I comply with it or I can get certified upon, right? So I cannot certify my organization based on CSF. I can only align my cybersecurity practice in my enterprise based on these guidelines. This is a primary difference in the what is the standard and the framework is. So 27001 is the most common standard and widely universally globally accepted, I will say. So there, because it sets the kind of requirements of or defines the best practices basically. Why I'm using these words like best practices, requirements, and all is, see, if there's a standard given which is widely accepted, fine, your organization may not go with certification, fine, but you can still use that standard to set your security practices. Right. So there you are saying I'm using it as a framework. Right. I may not comply 100%, but I'm using it as a framework. I'm setting all this, I'm setting my ISMS based on these universally accepted standard. Right. So, but there I'm using it more as a framework because I may not I may not be able to say I'm compliant because I may not be able to implement all the requirements. Fine. So framework is flexible that ways. Fine. So framework does not say, okay, you have to meet all these requirements. Framework says these are the practices that you can align with. Fine. And so that your cybersecurity effort investments are aligned with your business objectives and the risk to the organization. Fine. So this CSF framework also integrates with the 27001, NIST 853, and many other standards, fine, which are available in the market. So this CSF has three major components, which is defined as a core, implementation tiers, and profiles. Right? So the core is nothing but the structure of this framework. Right? It has six functions: govern, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So if we compare it with the, again, most common standard in the industry, 27001, right? So there it talks about, we have the clause 4 to clause 10, which sets the ISMS practices, right? And we have Annex A, where we define the four domains: technological controls, organization controls, people control, and physical controls. Fine. So that is structured that way, and this is structured in a slightly different way. It talks about that we have the function as a govern, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And this is basically putting the entire kind of the controls in five categories. Basically, if you look at this picture here, so this is all these controls are, it is dividing in five categories: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And the govern is that we have to make sure that these five practices, these five functions, are aligned to meet the business objectives. Fine, aligned with my business. And so monitoring and the compliance and the government means, like, we want to make sure that this practices aligns with my business. It is not like I'm not working in silos. So if you look at the PCI DSS talks specifically about that you have to encrypt the card data. Fine. Irrespective of what business you are in, if you have a card data, you have to encrypt it. So that's a very specific requirement. But here the requirements are not specific. They say you have to align with your business requirements. Any questions?
So,
Then
sir,
yeah,
go please.
yeah.
So, can you say functions are like govern, identity, protect, detect, respond, and recover? Then, what are the categories and subcategories like?
Yes. So categories and subcategories are like they're further like the govern is a very, like, it's just a domain. Fine. So in the domain govern, what all we are supposed to do. Fine. For example, in HR practices, fine, in the people control, there the ISO 27001 talks about we need to have the confidentiality agreement. Fine. We need to have the security awareness. Fine. So all that and the exit clearance and all that, all the, like, we have to deactivate the access and all. So there it defined the requirements. So here also this, and here again using the term requirements fits with when we talk about the standard. Fine. When we talk about the framework, it is more of guidelines. So the guidelines which are further divided into, so the all the subcategories are basically the guidelines. They are grouped together in categories, and those categories are grouped together in functions. Fine. So this is the how it is structured. So we'll see in the coming slides, we will see like how it is structured and what this categories of categories looks like. Fine. So at the high level, there are six domains, then group of guidelines, and then the further guidelines. Fine. So this is how you should look at it. So subcategories are basically the guidelines. Categories are again group of those guidelines, and those categories are further grouped as in these six domains. Fine. Okay. Then coming to the profiles, uh, because it's just a guidelines, fine, and so some of the guidelines I may follow, some I may not follow. It is not like a standard that I have to comply with, fine. So this is given to the organization so that they can align their cybersecurity practices, fine. So here they have come up with the concept of these profiles, that different industries, different size and complexity of the organizations have different security needs. Fine. So we can set whatever security target is. For example, what level of security we want to implement. Fine. That we can define as our target profile. Means this is what I want to achieve. Fine. And then we can assess our current practices. Fine. And on the same guidelines, and we can say this is today where I stand. So that's the current profile. Fine. And this is what I want to go to. Fine. That's a target profile. And then we have to set the strategy to achieve the target. Fine. So I will give some more references in, maybe towards the like, or maybe I'll give here itself. Fine. So because this is more of a kind of what level of security you need. Fine. So different industries, for example, an e-commerce website or a business into the e-commerce domain, fine, has a different requirements than a business in a like which is a data center or maybe a bank. Fine. So different businesses have the different level of security needs. Fine. So this is basically what your security needs are. You are putting those guidelines into one document that they call it as a profile. Right? So these profiles can be, you can customize, you can create your own. And this can be, they also have something called as a community profile. For example, in the banking industry, so some of the banks or maybe one bank, maybe any organization or maybe a regulatory body can come up with a, okay, for the banking, this is the profile, these are the guidelines we want to align, we want the organizations to meet. Fine. So that profile, what the requirements, or not the requirements, sorry, the guidelines that have been defined, which is not specific to your organization, but maybe to the group of organization, is called as a community profile. And those who are, because this is ISC2 chapter, and I believe most of us are the CSSP certified, and we have gone through the common criteria is one of the topic in the CSSP, if you remember. Fine. So we can relate this very much with that common criteria. Fine. Let me open this Wikipedia article to give you the reference only. And you can refer to this common criteria later on, maybe. So in the common criteria, it's just certification of the products. Fine. Here they talk about something called as security target and protection profiles. So protection profile means what are the controls I want to implement in my product. That becomes my target, means this is the level of security I want to be with. Fine. So if you remember this common criteria, what you have studied during the CSSP days, so this is very much analogical with that. Fine. This target profile is nothing but your security target, and this community profile is nothing but your protection profile. Fine. So means this is the profile which is given to you. You can use as it is as your security target, or you can customize it as per the needs of the organization, and you can define what level of security your organization needs. So once you define what level of security your organization needs, that becomes your target profile.
Nice.
Any questions? And
Nice
where
explanation.
you, yeah, and where you are today, fine, you do the assessment, generally we call it a gap assessment, fine. So the gap assessment report gives you some like a reference to, okay, where do we stand today? That is your current profile. So in other words, if we simply go with the 27001 ISMS standard, so IS 27001 becomes your security target. Basically, this is what I want to comply with. Fine. And whenever you initiate, find that I want to make an effort to implement 27001, you will first do the gap assessment. So currently, where do you stand? It becomes your current profile. So in the 27001, in the example of 27001, so your 27001 requirements will become your target profile. Any questions? Then coming to the implementation tiers. So if we talk about the same example of this common criteria, here they say like this, that you can go your ratings, fine. When they go for the evaluation, your ratings can go to EAL to EAL7, EAL1 to EAL7. Fine. So these are the ratings what you can go through. Means your product can be get certified at these 7 levels. Fine. EAL1 is most basic, means the requirements are just met. Fine. And 7 means the more mature product. Fine. So same way, this is we have 4 levels: tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if your organization is implementing security controls on an ad hoc basis, That's a tier 1. If you know that your risks, what your risks are, and you have implemented the controls to manage those risks, that is tier 2. If you have defined processes, fine, that you have the things are repeatable, that's a tier 3. And if you are continually improving a system, that's a tier 4. So this you can like probably relate with the CMI levels as well. Fine, not one to one, fine, but that's a maturity level. Fine, here also it is a kind of a more the higher you go, the more mature your practice is. So at higher tier you are. Fine. So there's a C2M2 standard as C2M2 framework also, like where you define the maturity levels. There's a CMMC also, I think, that's also defined maturity levels. Fine. So this is NIST CSF definition of defining the maturity levels. So if your processes are not very well defined and aligned, fine, so you are at the lower tiers. If your practices are very mature and continually improving, then you are at the higher tiers. Any questions? Okay. So I'm not going in detail of these tiers, what they define. I'm just giving you the high level idea of what the NIST framework is and how it is structured. Fine. And then I will give you some more relevance to the more common standards in the industry. Fine. So that you just understand the CSF. Details of the CSF cannot be covered in 1 hour. Fine. And we'll have more time at the end for the question answers if you want to discuss anything in particular about the CSF. Then coming back to the core functions, those 6 domains. Any questions? Okay. So coming back to the same core functions. So these are 6 functions. I generally refer to them as domains, fine, domains of these controls, fine. So, but CSF defines them as a function, right? So in the govern function, we talk about our risk management strategy, your needs and expectations, contextual organization, fine, all that stuff, fine, and we define the policy. So which is about the structuring this entire information security practice in your organization. Then identify means we need to identify the asset, identify the risks, fine. So that we can mitigate those risks, protect those assets by implementing those controls, fine. So that's the protect domain. Then once you identify your risks and assets are identified, risks are assessed, and then you have identified or determined the controls, also implemented the controls, you've considered your organization's assets are protected. Fine, but that's just half of the story here. Then if we have to do the continuous monitoring, fine, so that if there is an attack, there is a compromise, fine, we should be able to detect it, we should be able to respond to the situation, and we should be able to come out of the situation. Fine. In a more popular 27001 standard, this detect, respond, recover will become a part of the incident management. Fine. And the more so there the protect is the Annex A controls, fine, that 93 controls we have, they're all falling in this protect domain basically, fine, mostly if not all, fine, because we have to go in detail indicators to basically categorize them. So protect is more about need to have the password, you need to have the backups in place, fine, you need to have the patch management in place, fine. So all those practices, what we do, the firewall and everything, that's basically falling the protect domain. So protect is the largest one in terms of when it comes to implementing the cybersecurity controls. Any questions? So as you asked, what are those categories and subcategories? So this govern function has 6 categories. So the guidelines are categorized in organizational context, risk management, cybersecurity supply chain, fine, and then the roles and responsibilities, policies, procedures, and oversight. Oversight is monitoring and supervision. So if we look into the details, fine, I'm not going in details of each and every function, fine, I've just taken some screenshots from this document so that I can give the reference. And because again, this is a framework, fine, does not define specific requirements, fine. The requirements you can define for your organization. For example, you can say that I want to have a complex password, I want to have a simple password, I want to have a 2-factor authentication or maybe 1-factor authentication. It is purely based on your risks. Somebody has It's a message. This is industry specific framework. We can apply this. You can apply in any industry. Right? This is not industry specific. This is you can apply in any industry. And framework, this is a framework, not even defining the requirements. Right? So industry specific requirements are there. Right? For example, PCI. PCI specify the requirements for the specific cardholder data. Right? So this is a framework, right, where they say the requirements, you can decide what your requirements are. Right? So what you will define the requirements, that becomes your target profile. Right? And you will try to achieve the target profile. This is how it is structured. So coming back to the same like the discussion about this category and subcategory. So if you look at these details, the first GC01 says, so GBOC01 says that organization mission are understood, internal external stakeholders are determined. And if you look at this text below, this is copied from 27001. This is taken from 27001. Right? So it here also says that we need to determine, the organization shall determine internal external issues. Right? And organization shall determine interested parties, relevant requirements of interested parties. Right? So here also same, internal external stakeholders, means interested parties are determined and their needs and expectations regarding cybersecurity is understood. Right? So both this 27001 standard and the CSF framework talking about the same thing in a different way. Right? So this is more about a guideline. If you see, does not use any term, any like kind of a wording as shall or maybe must or need to do this. Fine. It is just defining that, okay, these should be understood. While here it is more about organization shall determine. Means this is a mandatory requirement that you have to do to fulfill the requirements of 27001. Same, organization shall determine the interested parties. If you don't determine interested parties, you cannot get certified on this standard. Any questions? So there's a difference in the language because this is more of a guideline and this is a more of a requirement, right? But they both are talking the same lines. So here also it is a organizational context, and in the 27001 it talks about the context of the organization. This is how the standard starts with. Going to the next one. Identify. In identify function, we have three categories: asset management, risk assessment, and improvement. Means you identify the assets, identify the risks, right, and also identify the improvement areas. So going with the details of one of this category, asset management, it talks about inventory of the hardware managed by the organization are maintained. Right? Inventory of software, services, systems are managed by organizations are maintained. Right? This is the text from the CSF framework. And if you go to this, the requirements given by 27001, it talks about inventory of information and other associated assets, including owners, shall be developed and maintained. Right? Talking about the same thing. Right? Information shall be classified according to the information security needs of the organization. Here also there is a assets are prioritized based on classification, criticality, resources, and impact on the mission of the organization. Right? Here it's again based on the CIA and the relevant interested parties requirement. Right? So again, both are talking about the same thing. It's CSF is not defining anything new to the industry. Right? It is just aligning these standards in these functions. This is what I intend to communicate here. So you will not find any new requirement in the CSF. Right? But yes, it is more about giving a structure or maybe or giving flexible structure to integrate multiple standards aligning with the organization's information security practice. Any questions about this? Then going to the third domain, protect. Right? So in the protect, we have to, again, it's identity management, then security awareness and training, then data security, platform is network and system security, application security, and the technology infrastructure resilience. In resilience, probably we'll talk about this failovers, availability, fine, and all that stuff. So going to again one example of this identity management, authentication, access control, Fine. We talk about the access to physical and logical assets is limited to the authorized users. Fine. And this is further elaborated in subcategories that identities shall be managed. Fine. Identities are proved means authentication. Fine. Then users and services are authenticated. So if we talk about, so this is the given in CSF 2.0, and this is coming from the 27001. A full life cycle of identities shall be managed. Fine. Again, talking about the same thing. So this is identity and credential for authorized users, services, hardware are managed by the organization. And this is also talking the same thing. Second is the rules to control physical and logical access. This is again coming from 2001. And here also it is covering both physical and logical. So this user services and are more of a like logical access. Fine. While this physical access and the access permission and all, this is logical access. And the last, they have given the physical access as well. Right. And here it says that these need to be controlled, access controlled. Fine. So here also talking the same, the asset is managed, these assets are managed, and the access to these assets are managed. Fine. So covering up more or less the same thing. Then coming to direct, it's a small function because more about your threat, this threat analysis and your monitoring. So first category here is the continuous monitoring. And if I talk about the network and network services are monitored, fine. Here's again, this is the concern one. Network systems applications shall be monitored for anomalous behavior, fine, and action shall be taken. Fine. So same thing being given in both documents. So here it talks about the physical environment is monitored to find potential adverse events, and here it is premises shall be continuously monitored for unauthorized physical access. Fine. Talking about the same thing. Any questions? So this is second last, respond. Maybe here. So this is more about the incident management. Fine. So if we go back to again one of this category, incident management, response to detected cybersecurity incidents. And this is again same. So they have defined the incident management in 5 different subcategories. And in the 2001, it's probably in one or two controls basically they have given. Which talk about that the incident management shall be planned basically. Fine. So the organization shall plan and prepare for the managing information security incidents. Fine. By defining the incident management process. Fine. So this is in 2001, and this is given in the CSF. Fine. There's no new requirement which we don't cover in 2001 is given here. Fine. But it's giving more structure to it. Okay, that what should be the part of incident management. Fine. So what is being given in one line in 2001, they have elaborated this. Okay, that this is what the expectations should be. But the same thing, if you look at, if you go to 2002 standard, so they have elaborated this, that what all is to be done, which is further given here. Fine. So this aligns 1 to 1 that ways. And the last is recover. Right. So this is incident recovery, execution, and communication. Right. So there it talks about the. So this is one of the control backup. So here it's a backup here. It's integrity of backup and the restoration shall be verified before restoration. Right. So basically the recovery actions, one of the recovery action can be to restore the backups. Right. Then we shall plan and prepare for managing security incidents. Fine. So this is again given for the like in the incident management itself. It talks about that you have to manage the incident means what incident has to be managed till the recovery. Fine. So this is the control for the recovery. So they have elaborated this recovery part here in further 6 subcategories, which is again defined at a very high level in the 2001. Details, some of the details are given in 2002. And security incidents shall be responded in accordance with the documented procedures. There is to talk about the same thing. The security recovery actions are determined, scoped, prioritized, and performed. Right? Again, different words communicating the same requirement or same guide best practice. So these are the 6 functions what we see in the CSF 2.0. So those are basically the realignment of all the best practices what we have. and we can map them to the multiple standards what we are using. For example, if an organization has to comply with 27001, PCI DSS, high trust, and all those requirements from those standards, you can align them in this framework. Any questions before we move to the next one? So the next is about the implementation example. So this CSF does not only stop at function, category, and subcategory. It also defines the implementation examples, which is more, you can see this looks like more of a, okay, what is expected from this guideline. Fine. So same as 27002 gives implementation guidance for the 27001 controls. So they have given those examples, those here itself, fine, that you can refer to. So these are the implementation examples. So again, if you will go in detail, so there's a, if I open that sheet, this is the CSF 2.0 implementation examples I had downloaded from the same NIST website. I will share the links later on the slides. So this is how it looks like. We have the function, category, subcategory, and the implementation example. So these are all given on the with the NIST standard, right, this NIST framework. So there is nothing that I have not documented anything out of this. Fine, just representing what is available on NIST website. Fine. So this is all what is expected from here. Fine, is given here in this document itself. Any questions? Then to further ease the implementation, right? They have also given this references. They have also given this references. Okay, that this requirement of the or this guideline from the CSF, how it aligns with the other standards in the industry. Right. So this is also a document available on their website itself. Non-informative references. So this is again the function, category, subcategory, implementation examples, and then further alignment with the other standards. Right. The CR is a Cyber Risk Institute. CSF is a CSF 1.1 means the previous version of CSF standard. Currently we are on CSF 2.0. Right. And then this is the SP 800, which is again special publication for the from the NIST itself. Right. So how it aligns with the requirements given in other standards, other frameworks, they have given references here. Not only they are giving references to other standards, even the other standards are also giving references to NIST CSF 2.0. So one of the example here is, if we go to the next slide, this is taken from 27002 standard. Fine. So 27002 has a requirement, 27001 has a requirement of contact with authorities. Fine. So if you refer to 27002, it gives the reference to CSF as well, CSF function as well. Fine. So this contact with authorities, it aligns with the this cybersecurity concept is coming from the CSF framework. Fine. So this requirement is in terms of if you realign find this with the CSF 2.0, find it falls in 4 functions: identify, protect, respond, and recover. Find inventory falls in the identify. Find monitoring falls in the detect and respond. Find web filtering falls in the protect domain function. Right. So this is not only CSF is giving reference to other commonly available standards. Other standards are also referring to the CSF. Fine. So that the organizations who have to implement this, they don't struggle with, okay, how this aligns together. Any questions? So these are the I will share this PPT with you, right, as a later on, so you can refer to these links. So this is the link from where you can download the CSF 2.0. It is free of cost. Then the reference tool I just presented today, it is also like given here, right? So the one with this blue bar. So this reference tool, right? So this is downloaded from here, and then this community profiles, right? So these are the profiles available based on different industry, different use cases. If I can maybe probably click on this to show you. Yeah. So here we have, so even if you want to create a community profile for your industry, fine, or maybe to help other organizations, fine. So you can create and submit there as well. So that's also guidelines is given here. But here we have the profiles here, and you can download these profiles. For this is with mapped with CSA cloud controls, fine. This is with CRI, Cyber Risk Institute. Right. So this is, if you look at, this is, for example, smart grid, right? The smart grid, right? This one is for threat mitigations. I go with more something which aligns with us. Operating procedure for security control, state intelligence, transport system, right? This is for transportation, right? So all these are the basically the details given as a, what are the guidelines for implementing cyber security. This is for health industry, privacy and cybersecurity profile. Right. So these are all profiles created and made available to organizations. Right. Not everything, every profile available is upgraded to 2.0. Right. But maybe with time, this is just a community work basically. Right. So some of them may be upgraded, some of them may not be upgraded, because you can use them in the way you want to. Any questions? It's a time for Q&A. So we have a short presentation to have the overview of CSF. Fine, we're not going in detail. Because in the details, you will see the same thing what you have studied through the CSSP, the same thing what you probably know as part of the 27001 or the other standard is the same thing given here as well. Nothing new, just the restructured, fine, and given as a kind of like one good thing is that you have now the maturity levels, fine, defined, fine, because which is not defined by the 27001. Which is not defined by the high trust, not defined by this PCI DSS. Right? So those maturity levels as tier 1 to tier 4 has been defined here, and those definitions you can use, and you can say, yes, my maturity assessment, if you're doing the assessment or implementation, fine, is aligned with CSF 2.0. Fine. C2M2 and CMMC are the other two frameworks. Fine. CMMI not very much aligns with cybersecurity because there the objective is different, and here the objective is different, and domain is different. Any questions?
What do you think more beneficial, like CSF 2 or ISO 27001, or how do, what is the core different points between, you will say there are in between them?
Okay, when you talk about what they define, it is very much aligned as I presented the so many examples, right, in today's presentation. Right? Some of the text was coming from 2001 and aligned, and I've given the reference to both, right? What is coming from 2001? So this is coming from CSF, and this bottom one from backup to this procedure, this is copied from 2001. Right? So this is very much aligned. If you talk about the cybersecurity practices, these are very much aligned. 2001 has an advantage. First, it is not something Americanized. It is a global. When ISO has the participation from all member countries. Well, NIST is specifically like more of an American thing. Right? So that's a difference, primary difference. And second, you cannot get certified against CSF. If you say, okay, I am my practice, see, management and the customer want to see, okay, how you are aligned, right, with a independent kind of a assessment, and that only 20 can give you, CSF cannot give you. So 27001 defines the requirements. You can get certified upon. You can present the certificate to your management, to your customers. You can say, okay, that my practices are aligned with this so and so thing, which is missing in CSF. CSF is more of a guidelines. You may align to it. You may not align to it. You can customize it. It's up to you.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Yes, Sandeep.
Yeah.
Rahul,
Please.
it was
Welcome,
a very
Sandeep.
good presentation. Yeah. But
Thank you so
I
much.
think it's totally free. You can download it and use it
Yes,
in your companies,
yes.
right?
Totally free.
And IST
CSF
resources
2.0
are
and
actually. Mhm.
mm, And even I think checklists are also like for CSF 1.0, there are more resources available because 2.0 was released last year in February, I think. When CSF 1.1 was available for quite a long time. So you will find many of the documentation, many of these available references are more aligned with CSF 1.1. So that's what's pre-existing. So 2.0 is relatively new, right? And because there is no such requirement that organization has to go with this, so many of the people, many of the organizations may not have upgraded their documentation with 2.0.
But just to add on, actually, it's an American NIST standard, and that quite well researched, and a lot of effort goes into it. And if you, yeah, and the other resources which you're talking about, if it's paid, then it's fine. But if you're talking about the industry, then yes, it's fine. I'm certified on, say, with ISO 27001 too. But for a
Mm.
company which is small and which they can start implementing these controls, there seems to be a good place to start with. That is one.
Yes, yes,
And second,
absolutely.
since it's a US standard, so ultimately NIST is there, which is a free resource for everyone.
Mhm.
So if you don't
Yes.
have that much of budget, start with NIST is the best option that we can think of. And anybody
Yes.
who wants to study also is a very good
Mhm.
resource, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that way is also like NIST CSF 2.0 is only giving the framework. Fine. When you
Yeah.
talk about the controls, so controls are defined in 853. Fine. So
Absolutely.
that's, yeah.
So yeah. So that is if you use both these are free resources available to
Mm.
everyone.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
more or
Yes, if
less you can.
certification, yes,
Hmm,
absolutely. If certification is not the like end goal, fine. So
hmm,
then you can refer to these free resources and you can align your practices accordingly. Yes.
yes. Right. So
So
there are
this
other
is basic.
resources in yeah, NIST has got wide array of resources available for various
Many, yes,
different
yes, yes,
industries
yes.
also.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And there are many like so I have made one small resource here. So on this website, so there you can see some of those standards and frameworks from NIST. In NIST, there's a proper like kind of a portal NIST has created for the cybersecurity and privacy, which is they have linked all these like standards in one place, which is relevant to our industry. And these all are like you can freely
So
access.
great. So if you can share that
That
web
also, this
address,
link also will share. I can share this in the chat message.
yeah, thanks.
Any more questions? Okay, then I think if there's no questions, then probably we can give back 15 minutes back to you guys. And thank you so much for attending the session today. And this recording will be available on YouTube soon. And if you have any questions, probably you might have got received my contact details as well. So anyone most welcome to ask anything later on as well. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank
It
you
was
all.
very nice
Thank you.
presentation,
Thank you.
Rahulji. Thank you for your time and thank you so much. And if this recording will be uploaded on our YouTube channel, so that those person who can't have visited can see that later onwards, or someone who has missed during the session, they can also go and see visit that and see that thing. And maybe in the next session or something, or they can take Rahul is in our group also. He can they can ask if someone want to. I think Rahul is very helpful. He will guide us there. And thank you so much, Rahulji, for your time. And yes, the people who are IC Square designation holders, they can claim for CP point directly by giving this YouTube channel link and saying that they have attended. So they can claim 1 CP fine for this recording.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank you
thank
so
you
much.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.